Learn Japanese history.
We are your navigators, Taro and Hanako.
Welcome, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really pivotal moment, Japan's super fast industrial and economic ramp-up in the late 19th century.
Yeah, it's quite a story. We're going to unpack the key moves, the big ideas that really pushed Japan onto the world stage back then.
So let's jump right in. Why this sudden push for industrialization after Japan opened up? What was the thinking?
Well, it boils down to survival and ambition, really. The leadership looked at the Western powers and saw a huge gap.
A gap in strength?
Exactly. National strength. And they figured pretty quickly that economic power, industrial power, was the foundation of that Western influence. They had to catch up.
So it wasn't just about cool new machines. It was fundamental to, staying independent, a strategic imperative.
Precisely. They saw it as absolutely crucial for maintaining sovereignty.
Okay, so that's the why. But how? I mean, moving from a largely agrarian base to an industrial one, that's a massive undertaking. Where do you even start?
Well, the government didn't just sit back. They took a really hands-on approach. The main policy banner was something called Shokusan Kōgyō.
Shokusan Kōgyō. Sounds important.
It means encouraging production and industry. And they really meant encouraging actively driving it.
So direct government involvement, building things themselves.
Absolutely. They established Kōgyō government-run factories. They took over some existing facilities, from the old shogunate and domains. But crucially, they also poured serious money into building brand new model factories, state-of-the-art stuff for the time.
Like the Tomioka silk mill. That's the classic example, isn't it?
That's the one. It's iconic. If you picture the inside, based on photos, say, from the Okaya Silk Reeling Museum collection, you really get a sense of the scale rows of machines, focused production. It was meant to show how modern industry worked.
A demonstration project, almost.
Kind of, yeah. And getting the technology.
Yeah.
That was critical. They didn't try to figure it all out themselves.
So how do they manage that? Tech transfer, I suppose.
Exactly that. Three main ways, really. First, they hired foreign experts engineers, technicians from the West, paid them well to come over and teach.
Okay, bring the knowledge in.
Second, they sent their own bright sparks, Japanese students overseas, to Europe, to America, to learn engineering, science, systems.
Learn directly from the source.
Right. And third, they just straight up imported machinery, bought the latest equipment available. So hire experts, train your own, buy the tools, a very pragmatic approach.
Makes a lot of sense. But industry needs money, right? Big investments like that need a financial system to actually work. The old methods probably weren't up to scratch.
You're absolutely right. You can't run a modern economy on, feudal-era finance. So financial reform was a top priority.
What did that look like?
A huge step was standardizing the currency. In 1871, the Shinkajirei, the new currency regulations, came in. This established the yen and its subunits, the sen and rin.
Ah, the yen. So that's when it started. One unified currency.
Yes. Much simpler for trade and accounting nationwide. Before that, it was a bit of a mess with different clan currencies.
Okay, standard money. What about banks? You need institutions to handle it, provide loans.
Exactly. Enter the National Bank Act of 1872. A key figure here was Shibusawa Aiichi.
Shibusawa, right. Heard his name a lot in this context.
He was instrumental. The idea was to set up a system of nationally chartered but privately run banks.
Private banks, not government ones.
Well, nationally regulated but privately owned and operated. These banks could issue paper money, backed by reserves, of course, and crucially, they could provide loans, capital for new businesses.
So mobilizing private wealth.
That was the goal. The government actively encouraged wealthy merchants, landowners, even the Kazoku, the former nobility, to pool their resources and establish these national banks, get private money flowing into industry.
A really interesting public-private partnership model, even back then.
It really was a coordinated push on both the industrial and financial fronts.
Okay, so factories are being built, money systems modernized. But Japan's still got a massive agricultural sector. What was happening down on the farm? Did they try to modernize that too?
They definitely did. Agriculture was still the backbone, feeding the population, providing raw materials. So efforts went into improving crop yields, better breeding techniques, stuff like that.
And expanding farmland.
Yes, particularly up north in Hokkaido, which, was previously called Ezo and seen as a frontier region.
Hokkaido development, that was a big project, right? The Kaitakushi.
That's it. The colonization office, the Kaitakushi, set up in '69, moved its main office to Sapporo in '71. Looking at old images, maybe like the one from the Hakodate City Central Library, you can picture this administrative center coordinating the whole effort.
And wasn't there that system with the samurai, the Tondenhai?
Yes, the Tondenhai, a really unique system. Basically, former samurai were settled in Hokkaido. They were given land to farm.
So turning warriors into farmers.
Into farmer soldiers, actually. They cultivated the land, developing agriculture, but they were also organized as a militia, providing defense for this northern frontier.
Wow, that's efficient. Solves a couple of problems at once.
Very pragmatic. And alongside that, they established the Sapporo Agricultural College, bring in modern farming science, train experts in agricultural management, improve things systematically.
It sounds incredibly planned out. Industry, finance, agriculture. They were really trying to modernize across the board.
It's a comprehensive strategy.
Yeah.
But you need to connect all these pieces, right?
Communication and transport, absolutely. How did they upgrade that? I assume the old ways weren't fast enough?
Not at all. The old HICAC messenger system just couldn't keep up. So in 1871, a busy year, they launched a modern postal service. Majima Hisoka was the driving force behind that.
The postal service, like with stamps and regular delivery.
Pretty much. It started between the big three cities, Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, but quickly expanded nationwide. And by 1873, they had a uniform national postal fee. Much more efficient.
That must have made a huge difference for business and government.
Oh, definitely. And even faster was the telegraph.
Ah, the electric wires.
Right. The first line popped up between Tokyo and Yokohama back in 1869. And from there, they just kept building the network. By the 1880s, most major towns were connected. News traveled incredibly fast compared to before.
I can imagine. Seeing an old photo of, say, the Tokyo post office from that era, maybe from the Postal Museum collection, with its dedicated windows and mailboxes, it really visualizes that new speed of communication.
It does. It's the infrastructure of modernity being built.
Yeah.
And then there's the really big one, railways.
The steam carriages, that must have been revolutionary. When did that start?
The first main line, government-operated, opened in 1872 between Shinbashi in Tokyo and Yokohama.
Shinbashi, Yokohama. Using British technology, I believe.
Yes, they leaned heavily on British expertise and tech for the railways initially. That first station at Shinbashi, depicted in images from places like the Museum of Maritime Science, became this symbol of progress.
And it expanded from there.
Oh, yes. Lines quickly followed, connecting Osaka and Kobe, then Kyoto and Osaka. Slowly knitting the country together with steel rails, it transformed the movement of goods and people.
And what about the sea? Japan's an island nation. Shipping must have been vital.
Absolutely critical. Initially, private enterprise took the lead, most notably the Mitsubishi Company, founded by Iwasaki Yataro. They got significant government support contracts,
Mitsubishi. Still a huge name today.
Indeed. But it wasn't smooth sailing, pardon the pun. There was intense competition, especially from another company, the Joint Transport Company, which had ties to Mitsui and was also government-backed.
Rival conglomerates even then.
Pretty much. It got quite cutthroat. Eventually, the government kind of banged their heads together, realizing this rivalry wasn't benefiting the nation.
So what happened?
They pushed for a merger. In 1885, Mitsubishi and the Joint Transport Company combined to form Nippon Yuzen-Kaisha, or NYK.
NYK Line, another name still around.
Right. It became Japan's dominant shipping company, crucial for international trade and projecting power.
Okay, so this is incredible growth. Factories, banks, railways, shipping. But this level of government spending and rapid change, it must have caused some economic problems, right? Inflation, maybe?
You've hit on the next major challenge.
Yeah.
Especially after the Sign-In War in 1877, a major rebellion that cost a fortune to put down.
How did they pay for it?
Largely by printing money. Lots of non-convertible paper money, fukanshihei, paper not backed by gold or silver.
Uh-oh. That usually leads to one thing.
Inflation, exactly. Prices started rising rapidly. The value of the paper money fell. It created serious economic instability.
So how did they fix that?
This brings us to Matsukata Masayoshi. He became finance minister and implemented what's known as the Matsukata deflation, or Matsukata fiscal policy, a tough medicine approach.
Okay, what did he do specifically?
Several things. First, boost government revenue, new taxes, better collection. Second, slash government spending, real austerity measures.
Tighten the belt.
Definitely. Third, use any surplus generated to build up reserves of specie actual silver and gold. And fourth, a really big structural change. Establish a proper central bank.
The Bank of Japan.
Precisely. Founded in 1882, it was given the sole right to issue banknotes. No more private banks issuing their own paper money.
Centralizing monetary control.
Exactly. And this allowed the final step. In 1885, the Bank of Japan started issuing convertible banknotes, kanzen shihei, notes that could, in theory, be exchanged for silver. Japan went on to a silver standard.
Wow. That first Bank of Japan 100 yen note, apparently quite large according to the Currency Museum description, must have felt like a real symbol of stability returning.
It was meant to be. And if you look at graphs from the time showing government paper money in circulation versus wholesale prices, you see the effect. Inflation gets tamed, prices stabilize, even fall.
So the policy worked, in that sense.
It did stabilize the currency and brought inflation under control. And there was another significant development around this time: privatization.
Selling off those government factories they'd built earlier.
Many of them, yes, except for the ones directly related to the military arsenals, shipyards for the Navy, that sort of thing. Those stayed under government control.
Who bought them?
Well, this is where you see the rise of the Seisho politically connected merchants. They often bought these state assets, sometimes quite cheaply.
And these became the seeds of...
The zaibatsu. Those huge family-controlled industrial and financial conglomerates, Mitsui, Mitsubishi, Sumitomo, Yasuda, many got their start or grew significantly by acquiring these privatized government businesses.
So Matsukata's policies stabilized things and kind of set the stage for private industry led by these emerging giants to take over.
That's a good summary of the positive outcomes. It laid a foundation for Japan's next phase of industrial growth, now driven more by the private sector, albeit dominated by the zaibatsu.
But you mentioned tough medicine. Were there downsides? Negative consequences?
Oh, definitely. The deflation part of the Matsukata deflation wasn't just about prices. It caused a pretty severe economic recession in the short term.
Who got hit hardest?
Farmers, especially small and medium-sized farmers. The price of rice plummeted due to the deflationary pressures. Many couldn't pay their taxes, fell into debt.
Lost their land.
Yes, huge numbers lost their land. It led to increased tenancy and also fueled migration, people leaving the countryside, heading to the cities looking for work, often in those same factories. It caused significant social hardship.
So a complex legacy. Economic stability achieved, but at a considerable social cost, particularly for the rural population.
Very much so. It highlights that these big economic shifts always have winners and losers.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. Looking back at this whole period, it's just breathtaking, the speed and scale of change.
It really is. We've seen this deliberate, state-led push Shokusan Kōgyō, building factories, adopting technology wholesale.
Then completely reshaping the financial system, the yen, the national banks, later the Bank of Japan.
Massive investment in infrastructure, post, telegraph, railways, shipping, connecting the nation in ways unthinkable just decades before.
And finally, that tough fiscal correction under Matsukata, stabilizing the economy, but also paving the way for the zaibatsu and, unfortunately, causing hardship for many farmers.
It's this combination of strategies, government leadership, rapid learning, infrastructure building, financial reform, and then stabilization that really set the stage for Japan's trajectory in the 20th century.
You really see the foundations being laid for Japan becoming a major industrial power. The speed is just remarkable compared to how long it took in some Western countries.
It truly is, and it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the challenges nations face today when they try to undergo rapid modernization.
Yeah. Are there parallels? What can we learn from Japan's experience, both the successes and the costs?
What were those long-term social consequences of such intense top-down change? It's something worth pondering how that shaped Japanese society moving forward. A fascinating period with lessons that still resonate.